What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today I'm bringing to you a video on the brand new Sprigguns Archetype that's going to be released in Blazing Vortex. This archetype has a lot of really cool things going for it. It's actually kind of an extension of Dogmatika lore to a degree, and the cards actually synergize with the Dogmatika archetype rather well. Blazing Vortex is looking pretty cool, and so I wanted to go ahead and read through the cards and share those with you today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. I want to start off with this screen because, man, the OCG thumbnails for videos always look so cool, don't they? But here we go. You can see the first three cards up here. They actually did a video previewing these cards. So let's go ahead and start with this one. So first up is Sprigguns Rocky. It's a level 4 fire machine effect monster, 1800 attack, 800 defense. Pretty good stats to start off. You can only use this card's name first and second effects once per turn each. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one Sprigguns monster or Vast Desert Gold Golgonda in your graveyard, except Sprigguns Rocky, add it to your hand. Okay, so a bit of recursion there. I mean, it's a 1-for-1 exchange, so that's not too bad. I guess it actually technically pluses you because you're getting the card back, so pretty nice. You do need the card in the graveyard already, though. If this card is in your hand, field, or graveyard, you can target a Spriggans Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as material. A lot of the main deck monsters for this archetype have this ability, and this is pretty cool because if you get them in the graveyard and you have the Spriggans Xyz on the field, you can just attach them for free. Seems pretty good, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit later on, though. Next up is Sprigguns Peed. So it is a level 4 fire machine effect, 0 attack, 2000 defense, not the best of stats. You can only use the effects once per turn each. First effect, you contribute this card, then target a Sprigguns monster in your graveyard, except Sprigguns Peed, special summon it to the field. So that's pretty good. This is the one that's a 1-for-1 exchange. I got a little bit confused there for a second, but being able to take any of your Sprigguns that are in the graveyard, there are ways to get them there, and then basically swap this for one of those is not bad. The second effect reads, if this card is in your hand, field, or graveyard, target a Spriggans Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as material. So if you have multiple of these in your graveyard of different names, you can attach all of them to a Spriggans Xyz monster. So that's pretty neat. Next up is Sprigguns Banger. Man, these are definitely going to get their name changed when they come here in the TCG. It is a level 8 fire machine effect monster, 500 attack. Hello, machine duplication. Hope that doesn't come up. 2500 defense. It is level 8 though, so we'll see. You can only use this card's name first and second effects once per turn each. If this card is in your hand, field, or graveyard, you can target a Spriggans Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as material. Then the second effect reads, you can banish both this card and one Spriggans monster from your graveyard, except a copy of itself. Add one Spriggans card from your deck to your hand. So the first effect is okay, I suppose. I guess it's a way to help get it to the graveyard. The thing is, though, the second effect is cool, but you have to banish both that card and a Spriggans monster if you want to be able to search for any Spriggans card. That's a bit steep, you know? I mean, it's a 2-for-1. Granted, they are in the graveyard, so it's not the worst, but it's not exactly a searcher, right? It's a very, very conditional searcher, let's call it. So let's move on. Let's see what else we've got here. Next up is Sprigguns Captain Sargus. So it is a level 8 fire machine effect monster, 1500 attack, 2800 defense. You can only use this card's first and second effects once per turn each. If it's in your hand, field, or graveyard, you can target a Spriggans Xyz monster you control, attach this card to it as material. Second effect, during your opponent's turn as a quick effect, you can detach an Xyz material from a monster you control, then target a face-up card on the field, destroy it. That's pretty good. And then the third effect is a Spriggans Xyz monster with this card as material gains this effect, gain 500 attack. So the problem here is that there isn't really a way so far to get this monster onto the board. The fact you have a quick effect pop, it only goes after, actually it goes after face-up cards, so that could go after spells and traps as well. Not bad. It does destroy and it does target, but being able to detach an Xyz material is pretty easy for this archetype. Notice it can be any Xyz material as well, so if you're playing other Xyz monsters, then you're going to be pretty solid. Now we're going to get to the Xyz monster itself, and this card is sweet. So this card is Sprigguns Ship Xblower. This is a rank 8 fire machine Xyz effect monster, 1600 attack, 2500 defense, requires 2 or more level 8 monsters to make. You can only use this card's name first or second effects once per turn each. Choose one monster zone or spell and trap zone on your opponent's field. Detach any number of materials from this card, and if you do, destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of materials you detach in that chosen zone, or monster zones and or spell and trap zones to the top, bottom, or adjacent to that zone until, or actually, and that's it, or adjacent to that zone. So for people who don't understand how this works, this is basically like an area of effect sort of removal. So it's not like a board wipe necessarily, but I'm going to go ahead and show a graphic on the screen. It basically makes like a plus sign or a cross shape depending on where you're going to target, and then it's going to destroy everything that's to the top, bottom, left, and right of that zone that you go after. So theoretically speaking, you could, if you target a main monster zone that is underneath an extra monster zone, you can pop cards that are in that extra monster zone to the first and third or third and fifth monster zones, also the one that you picked, so the second or the fourth, depending, and then also the spell and trap zone beneath it. Alternatively, you could go after a spell and trap zone and destroy the cards to the left and right of it, and then also the monster zone that is above it. So very interesting and unique sort of effect. I think there's a rocket monster that does something similar to this, but not in this way, and I really like this explored area of design space. What's also really neat about this as well, if you look at the wording, you're choosing a zone. You're not actually targeting the monster specifically. Talk about power creep, right? I mean, this is how we're going to like bypass these sorts of effects. So anything that has protection from targeting, this card can actually bypass that effect. This is really powerful, though. I think the biggest drawback here is that it's not a quick effect, so you can't use it reactively to your opponent's plays. However, the second effect of this card reads, during your opponent's main or battle phase, as a quick effect, you could banish this card until the end phase. So what's cool about this is that it has that Time Thief Redoer sort of effect. So if this card gets threatened, you can chain this in response, banish it, and then during your next turn, it'll come back. And what's cool is that, yes, all the Xyz materials fall off, but all the main deck monsters have the effect where they can just attach themselves again, so you can reset yourself up with this rank 8 Xyz monster to be able to blow your opponent's board up, even though you had to detach and banish to protect itself in the first place. I think that is just such a cool card design overall, and I still think it's a very powerful card, even though it may be a bit conditional. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Let's move on, though, to Sprigguns Watch, a normal spell card. You can only activate one per turn. You can add one Vast Desert Gold Golgonda from your deck to your hand, but if you control Vast Desert Gold Golgonda in your field zone, you can apply this effect instead. Add one Spriggans monster from your deck to your hand, and send one Spriggans monster from your deck to the graveyard. So there's your Rhoda for you. I mean, it is conditional and requires you to have Golgonda already on the field, but that's fine. I mean, I think that's a perfectly fair trade-off. This card actually searches the field spell, so it's like you already have 3 terraforming anyway, plus you can play terraforming for a total of 4. Set rotation can put you up to 5. Metaverse if you really want to go that deep and go 6. And then if you have Golgonda on the field, guess what? Then you can search for anything, but you can also dump a Spriggans monster instead, which is, or in addition to that rather, which is what's so cool, is that means that if you get the Xblower on the field, you can then immediately attach something to it. You can also get the level 8 into the graveyard, I believe, so then that way you can banish it to search for something else. There's also the monster that can add a card from your graveyard to your hand, or it can swap itself with something that's in your graveyard. So just setting up for some crazy good setup plays. Very, very good card, very well designed. Moving on, we have Vast Desert Gold Golgonda. So it's a field spell, as we already saw. You can only use the second and third effects once per turn each. Spriggans Xyz monsters on the field gain 1,000 attacks. So the Xblower was a 1,600 attack. It will go up to 2,600 attack with the Gold Golgonda card out. Now, second effect, if you do not control a Spriggans Xyz monster, you can discard one Spriggans card, special summon one Spriggans Xyz monster from your extra deck. Seems pretty good. Not only does this get the Xblower onto the field and you don't have to make it through traditional Xyz summoning ways, but you're also discarding a Spriggans card, which, similar to Watch, is allowing you to get your graveyard set up, because whatever you discard, you could just immediately attach to the Xblower. You also have the potential to set up for some of the other plays that the Spriggans cards can do, so you don't really care necessarily about that discard. Now, there is a downside that you could take a pretty heavy minus if your opponent has some disruption for this, but being able to get this pretty decent boss monster onto the field, I think that's pretty well worth it. Third effect, if a face-up Xyz monster you control leaves the field by a card effect, which the effect to detach and banish itself is a card effect, you can target one monster your opponent controls. It cannot attack for the rest of the turn. This is fine. I mean, it just protects you from getting OTK'd potentially. Your opponent can still like link off and do other things, so it's not guaranteed to protect you, but you could wait till the absolute last moment before your opponent goes into battle phase, and then you can banish the Xblower. You can target your opponent's biggest monster, and then you can hopefully survive the turn. Xblower comes back, you can attach a bunch of things, and then nuke them with the Xblower's effect. So pretty neat effect. Again, it's not like great, but it's fine. It's pretty decent. Next up is Sprigguns Call, a normal trap card. You can use this card's name first and second effects once per turn each. Target a Spriggans monster or Fallen of Albaz. I love how we're going back to this card. In your graveyard, special summon it. So it's a monster reborn. That seems pretty good. The second effect during either player's turn, except during the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card and a fusion monster from your graveyard, then target a Sprigguns Xyz monster you control. Attach one fusion monster that lists Fallen of Albaz as a fusion material from your extra deck to that target as Xyz material. That second effect is super conditional. You'll pull it off because there is a fusion monster we'll get to here in a moment, but the first effect is more what you're looking for here. Basically, it's just a monster reborn in the form of a trap. Pretty cool with all the Spriggans. Fallen of Albaz also has some synergy with this archetype, as you can already see, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Next up is Sprigguns Blast, another normal trap. You can only activate it once per turn. If you control a Spriggans monster, choose one main monster zone on your opponent's field. If there is a face-up monster in that zone, it cannot attack directly and its effects are negated until the end of this turn. If there's no monster in that zone, it cannot be used for the rest of this turn. If you control a fusion monster, which lists Fallen of Albaz's fusion material, you can choose two zones with this effect instead. So this is okay. Again, it's a bit conditional if you want that secondary effect. You do have to control a Spriggans monster to even use the first effect in the first place. And again, there's better cards that do this. So like, I think this one's like fine. This might be like a one of. It's searchable, so I guess that's one of the reasons you might want to play it. But I think there's better effect negation overall. So this one's a little bit of a miss for me, but it's not bad. It's okay. There was some Tri-Brigade support on this post here, so we're going to go straight down into the other card here, which is Splind, the Steel Express Dragon. So it is a level 8 Dark Machine Fusion effect monster, 2500 attack, 2000 defense. It requires Fallen of Albaz and one effect monster special summon this turn. You can only use this card's name first and second effects once per turn each. During your main phase, you can move this card to another main monster zone on your field. Then you can destroy all other face-up cards in this card's current column. So it gives you that Iron Dragon Tiamaton sort of effect, which is pretty neat. And then the second effect, during the end phase, if this card's in your graveyard because it was sent there this turn, you can take one Spriggans monster or Fallen of Albaz from your deck and either add it to your hand or special summon it. So this is essentially like Titaniclad, except it's for Spriggans specifically. And being able to take a Spriggans monster and special summon it is a really big deal, because if you go back up here to the level 8 here, the one that actually has the quick effect to pop something, I believe it was this one, Spriggans Captain Sargus, during your opponent's turn, quick effect, detach an Xyz material from a monster, then target a face-up card on the field, destroy it. This gives you some setups where, with the field spell, if you are just able to go ahead and bring out the Xblower, and if you're able to attach something to it as material, one of your other Spriggan cards, what have you, then if you use something like, let's say, Disciples of Nadir, and you're then able to send that fusion monster to the graveyard, you can trigger that, summon the Sargus during the end phase, and then you have a nice multi-setup here, because you have the Xblower set up for next turn, can potentially banish itself to protect itself, and then you also have Spriggans Captain Sargus here that can target and destroy a face-up card at quick effect speed. It's not like ridiculously overpowered or anything, but you can synergize this very well with some of the Dogmatika stuff that already exists, and I think that's the direction a lot of people are going to take with this. Also, Invoked is another one. I feel like Invoked would synergize very well with this as well, just because neither archetype is really, xenophobic when it comes to, collaborating or synergizing with one another. I'll go ahead and read off this trap card here too. Dogmatika Genesis, it's a normal trap card. You can only activate one card with this card's name per turn. Target a banished Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster and one effect monster your opponent controls that is the same card type. Return the banished monster into the extra deck, and if it does, negate the effects of that opponent's monster. Again, this is like very, very conditional. You need to already have the Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link in your banish zone, and your opponent has to be summoning one of the same type. That's really steep. It's cool you get to recycle it if it's banished, like that's nice, but again, that's jumping through a lot of hoops and hoping your opponent plays into it. But overall, I think this is actually a very, very cool archetype and has a lot of potential. I think, you know, when you're looking at it in the context of the current meta at the time of recording this video, you know, it's definitely going to have an uphill battle going up against some of these just terrifyingly strong combo decks that exist. But if the format does start to slow down a bit, I think there's a universe where some sort of Dogmatika Spriggans hybrid or Invoke Dogmatika Spriggans hybrid could really exist and actually be a solid contender. I think these cards are very good. I love the design of the Xblower specifically because it just does a lot of really cool things. It's super easy to access, and there is a potential for this archetype to get more support in the future. I mean, we see Dogmatika getting more support in the set following Blazing Vortex. We could very well see more Spriggan cards that make this archetype just completely, in a way, the best archetype in the format. It's possible, but we'll just have to see. I mean, I think when it comes to some of the other archetypes we've seen previously, this one to me just screams like it has a lot of potential. It's in a core set as well, so it's likely to get more support. We'll have to see. It is a bit conditional in ways, but it does a lot of really cool things, and it has me pretty excited. So, guys, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about the Sprigguns archetype. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. And if you found this video helpful, consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member. Just by showing your support in any way that you can, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.